All right, hear me out. There's a couple things that I contemplated here. Now, I know that this is an older story, but I didn't discover it until not too long ago. There was a couple things that I was contemplating. One, I was contemplating if I was even going to talk about this and cover it. And two, once I finally decided to cover this, I'm like, all right, how I'm contemplating on how I'm going to cover it. So I warn you, this video is going to be a little bit unorganized. So just bear with me here. Before I get to who I really want to talk about, let me cover somebody else right quick. This ought to take a couple minutes or less. So, J.K. Rowling. Now, of course, most of you already know who she is. British author. She wrote the Harry Potter books, all that stuff. Now, there was something that I read in a tweet from Dave Chappelle that I wasn't aware of this at first, or maybe I was aware of it at the time, but just forgot about it because it wasn't that important to me. But there's a reason why I'm about to say this here, and it brings me to my next thing. J.K. Rowling, British author, blah, blah, blah. She had criticized the party under Jeremy Corbyn. This is talking about other stuff. She opposes the American Republican Party under Trump. She opposed Scottish independence in a 2014 referendum and Brexit during the 2016, blah, blah, blah. Since late 2019, she has publicly voiced her opinions on transgender activism and related issues. Rowling has used language and expressed her views towards transgender people in a manner which has frequently been referred to as transphobic by LGBT rights organizations and some feminists, even as she has received support from other feminists. Now, let me scroll down a bit here. Her responses to proposed changes to Scottish gender recognition laws and her views on sex and gender have provoked controversy. Her stated views are that there should be a right for safe places to exist for biological women only, including women's shelters and prisons. She has been critical of self declared gender identity and of euphemistic language referring to biological women. Her statements have divided feminists, fueled debates on freedom of speech and cancel culture, and prompted support for transgender people from the arts sector. Now, let me go to ChatGPT here right quick because they're really excellent at breaking things down. And like I said, ChatGPT is like my favorite thing now. I'm on this thing literally every other day, if not every single day. Now, why was J.K. Rowling canceled? She has faced significant criticism, often referred to as cancellation, primarily because of her public statements and writings regarding gender identity and transgender issues. Here's a breakdown. Key controversies, tweets, and comments. In 2019, she publicly supported a woman named Maya Forstater. Forstater. I'm just going to say Forstater for now. There's always a name that I can't pronounce. Who lost her job after making statements that some considered transphobic. Rowling tweeted in defense of Maya's views saying, quote unquote, dress however you please, but force women out of their jobs for stating that sex is real. Hashtag I stand with Maya. Backlash. Her comments sparked intense backlash, particularly from the LGBT community. Okay, so now you get it. So, and by the way, J.K. Rowling, according to, if you take her views and apply that to American politics, she is more liberal. She supported Obama and Hillary, for example. Now, I don't know, I didn't see anything on Biden and Harris, so I don't know. We'll get to that part later in a different video, whatever. Now, why do I bring all this up? Because this brings me to my main topic here. This brings me here. So, this covers two of my favorite celebrities. It says right here, this is according to, and I'm sorry to say this, Breitbart. So Alyssa Milano thinks that Dave Chappelle's Netflix special should be pulled. His 2021 special, The Closer. Okay, now, again, I told you this video was going to be a little bit unorganized, and let me start off by saying this. And I'm saying this on the record, literally on the record. I'm saying this on video, as many people are watching this. I need you to understand this. I'm just speaking about myself here. Now, I know many of you would have mixed views. Dave Chappelle is one of my favorite comedians Anybody who watches my show regularly or semi-regularly, you know I'm a huge fan of a lot of comedians. I talk about them all the time in this show. And Alyssa Milano is also one of my favorite celebrities. I really like her as a Democrat, liberal activist. You know, she was for Hillary, she was for Harris, Biden, Bernie, Obama, you name it. And I also liked her role as Phoebe from Charmed. I thought that she played a funny role in that show. Great role. I know a lot of the older generation knows her from like Who's the Boss and stuff like that. So I think she's a great actress and activist, and I think that Dave Chappelle is a great actor and a hilarious comedian. So I really like them both. I've been a fan of both of them for a while, and I'm still a fan of both of them. So let's get that out the way. Now, left wing activist and actress Alyssa Milano says Netflix should pull comedian Dave Chappelle's special The Closer, adding that it is quote unquote really important to hold people accountable in this new era of cancel culture. After being asked by a photographer to share her thoughts on the so called Chappelle controversy, Alyssa Milano was quoted as saying, "I think there's no room for any hate speech right now in America." She says, "I think Netflix should pull the special and Dave should actually sit down and have a conversation with people from the community so that they can tell him why they were hurt by it." Let's see. The photographer asked Milano if she thinks cancel culture will be good in the long run or if this environment of political correctness will end up hurting the entertainment industry in the end. And she goes on to say, "I think it's really important to hold people accountable." She answered that. Now, this brings me to Dave Chappelle's tweet. Well, this his quote. Somebody else tweeted it, but it's his quote. He says, "They canceled J.K. Rowling. They started calling her a TERF. I didn't even know what that was, but I know that trans people make up words to win arguments. I'm Team TERF." Now, I don't even know. I don't even know what TERF is, so I had to look that up, and TERF stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminists. So basically, what they're saying is, it's used to describe individuals who identify as feminists but are accused of excluding or rejecting the rights and identities of transgender individuals, particularly transgender women. This term is often used critically to highlight perceived hostility or lack of inclusion towards the transgender community. Okay, now with all that being said, let me just stop here right quick. This is the reason why I contemplated on covering this. Another reason, because again, I'm such a fan of both of these people, and you've seen me do a bunch of videos. I'm tired of liberals and leftists and Democrats dividing each other and just going at each other's throats, you know, before we lost the election and after we lost the election. So it's like, now, I'm trying to think how I go about this. Just hold on a second. I told you this was going to be unorganized, so hold on. Now, here's the thing. Just so you all know, let me bring this up right quick. I want to say, yeah, this was actually in 2021, right after Dave Chappelle did that special. I remember posting online saying, I don't think that Chappelle is going to get canceled anytime soon. And I took a lot of flack from Democrats about that because they thought I was defending the transgender jokes. And a lot of Democrats on my Facebook were, some of them even unfriended me. And they said, why would you defend this anti-trans nonsense and all? And I said, listen, first of all, again, I'm not saying that two wrongs make a right. And I'm not saying that because somebody else said something worse, it means it. I said this. I said, because I was talking to, you know, there was an older person who commented there, and she was saying that Chappelle's special was hateful and all that. And I said to her, I said, but you come from the generation where you had Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy. As a matter of fact, even worse, your generation had George Carlin and Andrew Dice Clay and people like them. And aside from those two, there's been other comedians that have said things far worse and they didn't get canceled. Daniel Tosh made a rape joke on stage and he pointed to a woman in the audience and, you know, this is out of context. He said, everybody rape her. Dane Cook made a joke about the shooting in Colorado, the Aurora, Colorado shooting from 2012. Joan Rivers made jokes about dead people. Sarah Silverman made jokes about the Holocaust and 9/11. And then, of course, you got Seth MacFarlane, who did Family Guy and these other shows, which don't get me wrong, one of my favorite shows. I watch it all the time. And there's all type of jokes going on in there. You see all the Trey Parker and Matt Stone. And so the purpose of me saying that was I said, listen, there's been other comedians and other comedy writers out there that have made far worse jokes and they didn't get canceled and they're just fine. And so I'm saying because of that, I don't think that Chappelle is going to get canceled because what he said was nowhere near as bad as what some of these other people said. And of course, I get the same responses. They say, oh, well, just because other people said stuff worse doesn't mean that I'm willing to excuse what he said. Well, by the way, I've said this. And also, keep in mind, Dave Chappelle is a Democrat. He is a Democrat. He is a left-winger. He is a liberal. He supported Bill Clinton. He supported Obama. He supported Hillary. He supported Bernie. He supported Biden. And I'm pretty sure he supported Harris. And he also supported Andrew Yang at the time, during the 2020 primary when Andrew Yang was a Democrat then. So it's pretty clear. Chappelle is a Democrat. And of course, we already know Alyssa Milano's Democrat. I think we've been over that. So I'm telling people, not only have I been at a couple of Chappelle's stand-up shows in person, I watched that special when it was new on Netflix, when it came to Netflix. And I gotta tell you, so I would say a good 70 to 80% of the special was about trans people. But he didn't say anything that was, again, this is just my perception. Now, you can argue it all you want. You can be mad at me all you want to. I didn't hear him say anything that implied that he hated trans people. I think the message was that they can do whatever they want in their bedrooms and you do what you want with your body. Again, as a liberal, he believes your body, your choice. And he's like, that's just not the life that I choose to live. And hey, he's like, I got trans friends. And I know that sounds like the typical, well, a white person says, well, I have black friends, so I'm not racist. So people will say, oh, well, you can say you got trans friends, so you're not, that doesn't mean you're not transphobic, whatever. So I do think that the media kind of overreacted to that special. And it's kind of funny because Chappelle, before that special, was one of America's most beloved comedians. That's why he got paid more money per Netflix special than any other comedian, except for maybe Kevin Hart. Because remember, he was gone from the public for about 10 years. His show ended in 2005, I think, maybe 6. He came back in 2015. He was doing comedy shows around here. I went to the special downtown. And then the next year, he's on SNL giving his take on the 2016 election and stuff like that. He releases Netflix specials. He gets $20 million per special, all that stuff. So this is a sign right here that this is clearly a beloved figure. This is a beloved celebrity, comedy superstar. Okay. Now, let me go on with this article right here. So Alyssa Milano says this: I think Netflix should pull the special and Dave should. Okay, that's already been said. Cancel culture good in the long run. Oh, did I already accidentally scroll up? Okay. Alyssa Milano spoke to the photographer after being arrested Tuesday at a demonstration outside the White House in support of Senate Democrats' efforts to pass the so-called Freedom to Vote Act, which would seize power from states to oversee their elections, curtailing their ability to implement their own voter identification requirements. Earlier this month, the actress ranted about how screwed up Americans right now in a Supreme Court that she claims is packed with abusers. She also insisted that this is the most dangerous time to be a woman in America. Use your privilege to destroy your own privilege. Okay, so the gist of it is this. And I'm kind of, like I said, I'm repeating myself here and I'm paraphrasing. So the gist of it is Alyssa Milano, a Democrat, is calling for Netflix to pull the Netflix comedy special of Dave Chappelle, another Democrat. And listen, at the end of the day, you can support somebody and you can like somebody and respect them and have all the utmost love and respect for them. But I think that I would have to say that I disagree with her on this one because there's a couple reasons why I would disagree. The first reason being the obvious, and this is biased because, again, I'm a Chappelle fan and I think he's funny and he's one of my favorite comedians. The trans jokes are not necessarily my favorite jokes, not because I think they're offensive, but just because it's like, whatever. I really don't feel strongly one way or the other about them. But, the other types of jokes, the political jokes, the race jokes, the sex jokes, the, the jokes about drugs and alcohol and making fun of celebrities and all that stuff. That's kind of where I'm at. Those are my favorite types of jokes. That's my favorite style of humor. But I think it's also, I would disagree with her on this because I think it's a slippery slope to canceling most other comedians, if not all of them. You remember a couple years ago, I think it was either last year or 2 years ago. Remember, I did a video with the major question where Trump said that he wanted Jimmy Kimmel fired because he made jokes about him. He wanted him fired. He wanted him censored. And then my question was, well, wait a second. So does that mean that all comedians should be canceled and censored? Because pretty much every comedian out there makes fun of you, including the ones who supported you, by the way, including people like Larry the Cable Guy who supported you, including, I'm assuming maybe Bill Engvall or Jeff Foxworthy and people like them. We know most comedians tend to be more liberal Democrat anyway, and it's like, all right, Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, Kevin Hart, Cedric the Entertainer, D.L. Hughley, Eddie Griffin, most of them, Mike Epps, most of them tend to be Democrat or at least Democrat leaning. Some of them are independent. But all those guys made fun of you too. So if you want Jimmy Kimmel canceled, that means you want all of them canceled. So all comedians canceled because you can't take people joking about you. And that kind of brings me to my next point. So Alyssa is saying that the transgender community is hurt by Chappelle's jokes, so therefore he should sit and talk with them and they can tell him, like, hey, this is why we were hurt by it. Well, here's my thing. Even if, I don't know if he's tried, but let's say he tries to reach out to the transgender community or the LGBT community, and let's say that they do sit and have a good talk, whether it's on camera or not, and they actually do tell him whatever problems they, are facing and why they were offended by his jokes. Is that gonna change Chappelle's style of humor? Is that gonna prompt Netflix to pull his special? I don't think so. I really don't think so. And let's remember, a couple years ago, Dave Chappelle got attacked on stage, and the guy that attacked him on stage is a guy who calls himself bisexual. And guess what? Chappelle addressed that in another special, and guess what? He still jokes about gay, lesbian, bi, trans, whatever. He still jokes about that. So I need people who are listening to me, people who are watching this right now, if you're a Democrat, if you're a liberal, if you're a left-winger, which I am, and I'll say it again, I, just like Alyssa, I supported Obama, Hillary, Bernie, Biden, Harris. I supported all of them. And I'm going to support whoever the next Democrat is to run for president. Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, whoever it might be. You have to understand, this is not me being defensive of the trans jokes. Like I told you, I'm indifferent to that. All I'm saying is that let's say we did go about canceling every comedian who made those jokes. We canceled Dave Chappelle because of this. We canceled Chris Rock because of his trans jokes. We canceled Kevin Hart because of his gay jokes, or we canceled any other comedian because of whatever other joke they made. You know what that does inadvertently? Whether you realize it or not, that feeds into the Republican narrative. And Republicans are already saying, oh, Democrats are about censorship and they oppose freedom of speech. Well, by doing stuff like this, all that does is prove their point. And so, again, I really like Alyssa Milano. Like I said, her show was great, and I love what she's doing as an activist, and I appreciate her work highly, and I'm actually trying to get her on my show, which I don't know how likely that is because she's rich and famous, and I'm not. So, not to say it's never, never say never. It's not impossible, but right now I think the chances are pretty slim. But I would just have to disagree with her on this one. I said, you and I are like, I would have to break with her on this one. Not like, hey, I'm not a fan of you anymore, but just like, this one right here, I just don't see it because I've pointed this out before. I've said this before on a show. Listen, I've said this a few times. Every time I do a show about a comedian, I've always said this. I said, black comedians make jokes about black people all the time. Every black comedian does it. Every black comedian that's been on that stage, all the way going back to Red Fox, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy. Everybody that was on Def Comedy Jam, everybody from Comic View, everybody from Showtime at the Apollo, or Comics Live, Live on Broadway, Shaquille O'Neal All-Star Jam, all these different shows, black comedians were making jokes about black people. And while you might have some black people that may not watch it because they feel that it's not funny, or they might think it's too stereotypical, whatever, The fact of the matter is, I don't see anybody attempting to pull their specials because of that. Also, they make fun of white people, and white comedians will make fun of white people too. I don't hear anybody saying that their specials are going to be canceled that should be canceled because of that. And also, here's another thing you have to remember. Here's another thing you have to remember. You have to know this in case you don't remember it or you may not be aware of this, but let me just throw this out here. That's not the first time Dave Chappelle has made trans jokes. He made that joke in a special in 2017. I think maybe even possibly 2016 he made a joke. Because especially since Bruce Jenner became Caitlyn Jenner. Remember, Bruce became Caitlyn in 2015. So that really, in my opinion, I think kind of opened the door with the whole LGBT thing. And like I said, as a liberal, I'm respectful of the movement. Don't get me wrong. I have nothing to say like really against it other than, just don't force anybody else. I mean, keep it in your bedroom and make sure everything's consensual, but that's the common sense rule. And I guess what I'm trying to say is it brings me to my point because, again, this is just how I feel personally. Now, I'm not trying to offend anybody, and you could feel however you want to feel and comment however you tell me whatever. But when you look at the scope of the comedians that I've mentioned and every other comedian that I've talked about in this show, there's jokes about black people, there's jokes about white people, there's jokes about Mexicans, there's jokes about Asians, Democrats, Republicans, Christians, atheists, agnostics, Catholics, Jews, Nazis, the Holocaust, 9/11, sexual promiscuity, jokes about drugs and alcohol. There's all that stuff. And I'm sure a number of those jokes probably offended some people. I don't doubt that. And then we get to this. And then we get to transgenders, the LGBT community. And all of a sudden people say you can't say that. And I guess the one thing that nobody has ever bothered to explain to me is why. And again, why am I doing this? Because I just think that I'm not trying to sound like I'm overreacting here because I'm really not trying to, but this does kind of make me a little bit sad in the sense that I see, like, it's already bad enough that I see Democratic voters and liberal voters and politicians and all those people being at each other's throats and dividing us and going against, but, I see it amongst celebrities and it's like, you're on the same side. And I'm pretty sure Alyssa Milano knows this. But in case she doesn't know this, I'll reiterate. Dave Chappelle is a Democrat. Dave Chappelle is a liberal. Dave Chappelle is a left-winger. Dave Chappelle was against George Bush. He was against Dick Cheney. He's against Trump. And I'm sure he's going to be against whoever the next Republican nominee is. Ron DeSantis, J.D. Vance, I don't know, whoever. Fill in the blank any Republican name. I guarantee you he'll be against them. And so, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to... I mean, who? Let me ask you this. To the people watching this, whose side are you on? Are you with Chappelle and saying, no, he can say whatever he wants and he shouldn't be canceled? Or are you with Alyssa and you say, no, I'm with her, he should be canceled because he's hurt the transgender community? Well, keep in mind, if anybody would be hurting the trans community, it would be the government, politicians, whatever, because they're the ones who make decisions about certain things that would affect them one way or the other, as opposed to a comedian on stage who makes a bunch of jokes that many people would consider in poor taste that really hasn't done any damage to the community, so to say. At least in my opinion of it. Again, this is kind of me pontificating like a, I don't know, bore or something. But that's why I told you this video is going to be unorganized. Because I don't see, I'm just saying I don't see his jokes as hate speech. Now, if somebody wants to do a video with me or audio segment with me and talk about this, and you want to explain to me how this is considered hate speech, I don't know. I mean, you can, I'm free to have that conversation. I'm open to have that conversation. But this is a major area where I would have to say I disagree with her. And I think she's kind of wrong on this one. Because that feeds into the Republican narrative. And I don't know how most of the general left feels about this. I know a lot of the left was upset with Chappelle's jokes over it. But then you also have some people on the left that are like, oh, we're tired of Alyssa Milano. She's a washed-up actress. She's a has-been or whatever. But if you say that and you oppose Chappelle's jokes, then whose side are you on this one? So, I don't know. This right here is like, I don't know. By the way, I'm guessing that because I'm not rich, because I'm not famous yet, I don't think YouTube or Facebook or any other source is gonna pull this video down because I didn't say anything negative against the trans. And you tell me if I did. I don't think I did, but you tell me. Um, so that's why and I'm not even gonna bother to read any comments under this because this is Breitbart, and unfortunately, Breitbart is a hardcore right wing source, but this is what popped up here. I saw something that showed Fox News talked about it. Of course, you know I don't even want to read that or see any comments on that because I already know. I already know. So that's, I think that's pretty much it. I don't think there's really much else to add to this. Um, but, and by the way, if if I got lucky enough that Alyssa did my show, if I got her on a live video, either on Facebook or Instagram or Blue Sky or anything like that, TikTok, whatever you name it, YouTube, I think I would honestly tell her, like, listen, I've been a fan of you for a long time, and I still am. And I highly appreciate what you do in politics. I highly appreciate your work as an activist. I highly appreciate the fact that you supported our preferred candidates. And like I said, great job as Phoebe on Charmed, and great job with the other stuff that you've done, the Who's the Boss and movies and shows that you've done, the many commercials you've done throughout the years, all that stuff. Thank you for your kind words about the late, great Shannon Doherty and all of that. But I just think that, I don't know. I can't, I'd be lying if I said I sided with her on this one. And to be fair, like I said, this wasn't even my favorite special from Chappelle. Okay, I honestly would give this special maybe a 6 or a 7. Just because it wasn't as funny to me. But, I mean, most of his other specials I'd much prefer. But nevertheless, it doesn't take away from his talent. He's still a funny guy, both as a comedian and as a person. And, you know, Milano has her talents too. So, I just wanted to say that, get that out the way. And, again, let me reiterate again for the dozenth time that Dave Chappelle and Alyssa Milano, both talented people. They're great at what they do. And both their careers have taken them a long way. But like I said, I'm not against the idea of you even wanting to protest this. I'm not even against the idea that, you know, I'm not saying that, listen, you have a right to feel how you want to feel. If you think that his special should be canceled, that's fine that you feel that way. I just don't think it's going to happen. And the reason I don't think it's going to happen is because, one, he has way too many fans. He has way too much support, even after they canceled a show of his in Minneapolis. I think they canceled a show of his somewhere else too, but I can't remember. But also, as I said, look at the stuff that these other comedians are saying. I mean, you look at Daniel Tosh. Look at this, this Tony Hinchcliffe, this comedian guy that was at Trump's rally in New York at Madison Square Garden. And even that's not the worst of the worst, but there's other examples I could provide. There's a whole long list I could go through. But I say, look, Alyssa, I like you, but I'm just not with you on this one. I just don't. I don't see it. And even if I felt the same way you do, and let's say I hated the special, and let's say I thought that what he was saying was hate speech, I would still say I don't think he's gonna get canceled, because you can make an argument to say almost any comedian out there says stuff that promotes hate speech and people don't like them. But guess what? Not only do I not see anybody wanting those people canceled, I also don't think they're gonna get canceled. So that's about all I can say to that. But hey, anybody who, if you watch this video, give me your thoughts, give me your comments, and you like, comment, subscribe, follow. All the links to my socials are in the bio for each of my accounts. So you go on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Go to my bio in my YouTube section. All those links are there. If you're watching it on Facebook, go there. You'll see the link to that. Subscribe to my YouTube. And yeah, that's all I got to say about that. We'll see how long this video lasts, and let's see how long it'll stay up. And I'm sure the comment section will be interesting.